I saw an article last year about the hundreds of pounds of vegetables that some New York City restaurants order for just one day of meals. I don't know about you, but I completely take for granted the amount of coordination that allows me to eat what I want at a restaurant, keep prices the same, and not waste food. So I connected with a former sous chef and a senior food supplier to discuss how math supports the life cycle of a restaurant.
You're watching iHeartSTEM. Today we'll tackle one STEM topic I learned from experts. Just 4 key questions with each answer under 1 minute or less.
Starting and running a restaurant is like any business where you have to build out an equation that looks at revenue and cost. The math isn't complicated, but the inputs to the variables and factors require a solid understanding of how to apply mathematical principles to restaurants. The cost side of the equation is made up of operating costs, labor costs, and food costs. When you start a restaurant, you know some of these operating costs, and there are certain target percents of how you want to distribute your costs. For example, higher-end menus typically have 28 to 30% of their menu made up of food costs, versus when you want to appeal to a broader base, but not fast food, your food costs would be more like 21 to 25% of your costs. From there, you need to start to build up the revenue side of the equation, which will impact many of your remaining costs. Revenue is about determining what you think the restaurant can realistically do on a given day, which comes down to breaking up the formula into each variable. Variables include what type of restaurant concept can be supported, what type of price point, what type of food, how many people live or work in an area, how many seats can it hold, and how many seatings can you get in a night. The answers to this drive your menu engineering, which will then fill in the blanks for your remaining costs. Because menu engineering is about creating value, supply lifecycle and costs are crucial to engineering your menu options. First, you need to analyze the refrigeration and shelf space to understand how far in advance you can order certain supplies. This means accounting for how much space an item takes up, its lifespan, and if a restaurant is new, how much you anticipate selling in a given time period. Then you need to figure out a few things about your potential menu items. How much prep time is needed and what sequencing is needed for an item so that it can be prepared based on delivery timing. How the configuration of your kitchen is going to support creating this item, ensuring the right temperature or correctness. How many people do you need to create the food to support volume and quickness? If you were to map out this process, it could be represented via a queuing model that would also show you where a backlog or a problem could arise and what you would need to change. In addition to the kitchen, the supply chain itself can have a big impact on your economics and menu selection. A sous chef or purchasing manager will focus on getting the best value on the big items, like for a Mexican restaurant, limes and avocados. Once you create the key vendor relationships for these items, which drives the timing of deliveries, you can trickle in the rest of your menu ingredients. For large restaurants, you're looking at the menu performance in detail on a regular basis to keep track of your costs. Typically, restaurants do a bi-weekly review of what's sold to ensure costs are in line with projections. For large restaurants, you'll review the profit and loss on a monthly basis. On a quarterly basis, you're also doing a bigger review to see the trends of how people are ordering items. The main reasons to adjust an item on the menu is because it's not performing or it has a significant cost change. If you notice that an item isn't moving well, typically you'll start with making some adjustments before fully removing, like adjusting a sauce or changing the flavor profile. If an item is a cost change, there's a couple things restaurants will look at. If it's a staple item for a cuisine like guacamole is to Mexican food, then you don't necessarily want to remove the item. You'll see if you can get the item from another food supplier or see if you can get a discount off another item to offset the increase in cost for this item. If it's something that's impacting all suppliers like the bird flu, you'll see if you can adjust the recipe to find a short-term alternative. If you know that an item is going to be going up in price or are worried that a vendor may not be able to fulfill a full order, over-purchasing can be used, but you need to be confident in how much you're ordering. If a restaurant has enough history, there are several applications that help chefs with optimizing food purchasing as well as inventory management. Food purchasing is about balancing the quality with cost. So with modern systems, it's a lot easier to leverage historical data to ensure you're ordering the right amount of food, reducing waste, and getting the best price through comparison. One downside to technology, though, is the loss of the relationship to suppliers. And when a chef gets in a bind, they often need to go beyond what the software can provide. For inventory management, this has drastically cut down on the manual math, as the system is advanced enough to know the exact state of the inventory from the time someone orders an item on the menu. Sticking with our guacamole example, as soon as this is ordered, one avocado from the inventory management system would be deducted, which represents, let's say, 1/48th of a case of avocados. The system knows exactly the cost based on how much was paid for the case. So maybe it's $48, but on the last order it was $96. The system knows that the plate cost for that item doubled, so a chef can take action. It also allows a chef to very easily know where they are with items to quickly adjust for changes in purchasing habits. Food and labor costs can make or break a restaurant, so this data is invaluable to a restaurant. I am so impressed with the skill set required to run a restaurant. Someone who can do the art of picking out the menu and the math that keeps it all afloat. Can you imagine doing this math before computers? I'll see you next week.